What's going on, everybody? We're going to be joined by a special guest. His name is Andre Haycal Jr. He is the CEO of one of the most well-renowned cold email list building softwares in the space, and he is also the co-founder of Client Ascension. Andre was able to scale ListKit.io from $0 to $1 million in under 90 days, exclusively using cold email. No outside funding, no ad spend, and in this video, Andre is going to be breaking down the processes that they used to scale ListKit, as well as the systems that we're both using to sign six-figure deals using cold email. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. With me today, I have Andre Haycal Jr. He's one of the most infamous people in the cold email space. Somebody that I've known for a couple of years and gotten a chance to work with him in his programs. I've learned a lot from him. I use his current list building software called ListKit. It's a SaaS, which we'll talk about today. And really with the opportunity of having this meeting here together, just going to kind of talk about Andre's experience over the years. And I'll have a couple of questions, and I guess without further ado, we could kind of just jump right into things. So Andre, thank you so much for joining today. Really excited to have you. And I guess jumping into things, I'm sure a lot of people that are following my channel already know who you are, but for those who don't, do you mind just introducing yourself and giving us a little background context of who you are and the businesses, that you're running?
For sure. Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on, Nick. Love to talk about cold email and some of the things that we're doing in the space and kind of the journey to get to this point. So like you said, my name's Andre. I'm one of the co-founders over at ListKit, which is a software tool. Originally, we had started a coaching program called Client Ascension, which we still run today. And even before that, we had a cold email agency called Knowledge Egg. So pretty ingrained in the cold email space. Our business partner, Daniel Fazio, who works under the brand on Twitter known as Cold Email Wizard, also started in this space with the Cold Email Mastery course and some of his own SaaS tools as well. But yeah, that's kind of my background. I just run a couple different businesses in the cold email space.
Very cool. And yeah, I mean, you guys have done some incredible things just with like your online presence and just what you're doing in the space with the multiple businesses. And for, those that don't know much about me or my background, like one of my inspirations and motivations was seeing what Andre and Cold Email Wizard and Christian, a lot of those guys had done, because it's absolutely incredible. And they've really kind of created this whole ecosystem of, cold email, and they've created multiple different business models with it. So I've learned a lot from Andre, and just pretty exciting seeing their journey, because I'm trying to mimic something similar myself. So Andre, I've got to ask, why cold email? What got you into the cold email space in general, going back a couple of years?
Yeah, so it had to be like 6 years ago at this point. I guess the story really boils down to back in college is when I first met my business partner, Christian, at the time, who's still with us at all the businesses I mentioned before. And we were both in college, going to classes and kind of just getting bored of this whole college environment and atmosphere that was created around like job fairs and career networking events and all that sort of stuff. And so we wanted to take a completely different path, which was entrepreneurship. It's just we didn't really know anything about entrepreneurship to know where to start. And so we were following Gary Vee at the time, and Gary Vee's best advice was to essentially start a podcast. And so we did that. And I had some entrepreneurial family members, and I mean, I tried at entrepreneurship even going back into high school. So I was a little bit into the space already. Christian was very new to the space. And so we said, let's just start a podcast and start interviewing entrepreneurs and seeing what made them successful. And then from there, we can kind of figure it out on our own. And so we started interviewing people locally, like my grandpa, who's like my biggest inspiration, and my dad, who's an entrepreneur as well, and some other people. Then we started to get into the online space and finding people there. And then we started to get into like high-end space of like getting guys like Brad Lee and guys like Guy Kawasaki and guys like Neil Patel and Adam Weitzman and all these really big entrepreneurs on our podcast. And the way we were able to do that was through cold email. And at the time, I didn't know what cold email was. I didn't even know that we were doing cold email, but essentially what we were doing is looking through Instagram to see which entrepreneurs were, growing the fastest and had the most followers. And then we'd look at the contact card on Instagram with their email and send them an email saying, hey, we're so-and-so, we run a podcast show called Real Talk University. We'd love to feature your success story in front of our audience of college entrepreneurs. And we did that. And we sent Christian and I pretty much every single day. We held each other accountable to sending 10 cold emails every single day to potential guests. And we'd send a couple hundred and land a big guest. And we'd send a couple hundred, land a big guest. And so people from the outside were like, how the hell are these 2 college students getting Neil Patel to go on their podcast? He doesn't do any podcasts. And it's because we were just blasting hundreds of cold emails to all kinds of guests that we thought would be good to get on the show. And we would get just a few here and there. And just like with cold email in general now, once you get a few on your show, or once you get a few case studies or winners, those next cold emails get that much easier because you now have social proof. And so our email script started to evolve. We'd be like, hey, you want to come on our show? We just recently had Neil Patel on our show. And now people are like giving us more credit than before. They're not just 2 average dudes. If Neil Patel is willing to do it, maybe I should also look into it. So that's where we first discovered cold email.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And so like, just to like make sure that, you know, the listeners are kind of understanding, like this was supposed to be just a podcast. And then in order to actually get, you know, your customers or the people on your podcast, you found their emails just on like Instagram, reached out to them. This is before even really understanding how effective cold email could be, but that's the route that you took. And that was the mechanism for landing your first couple of customers and what kind of inspired you to get into the cold email space. Is that correct?
That's it. It's like, dude, we wanted to get big name entrepreneurs on our podcast. And there's literally only one way to do that. You have to reach out to those people and ask. And you have to do it enough times and be willing to do it enough times and have a really small percentage success rate. And that's all you need. If Christian and I could send 10 cold emails every single day each, you know, in a week, we're sending around 150 cold emails. If we just get one new guest every week that's on that list of 150 reach outs, we're happy. And that's pretty much how it played out. We had, like I said, some of the big names: Bradley, Timothy Sykes, Neil Patel, Gronk's brother. We did an interview in Gary Vee's office in New York City. I mean, dude, yeah, we just had some huge names on the podcast, and it ended up taking off. It just got to a point where we started the podcast in order to learn about what business to start. The podcast over time, it just wasn't making sense financially to continue it. It wasn't a business. And so we kind of were lost on what we should do, because we loved the podcast. It was working, but it wasn't making us money. And so we're like, let's just apply this cold email skill set that we now have for getting podcast guests to something else. And so we got into LinkedIn automation. We did LinkedIn outreach as well. And we basically started a marketing agency around outreach using cold email and LinkedIn. Just literally cold outreach, because that's what we did for our podcast. And so we then discovered it worked for a lot of other B2B businesses.
That's incredible. And then, I mean, from that point, then you guys basically used the mechanism that gave you success with the podcast and turned that into your main core offering with your business, which was Knowledge X, for those who don't know, a couple of years ago. And then, do you mind just giving a quick preview? Like it evolved from Knowledge X and then Client Ascension, which was the coaching program showing people how to do the success that you had. And then now ListKit. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, and there's like little nuances within the journey. So we had Knowledge X, which started as a LinkedIn outreach agency pretty much, and then that went more into cold email, because we learned more about cold email after buying Daniel's course. We started with LinkedIn outreach, even though we were doing the emails on the podcast side. We just started with LinkedIn because that same strategy worked. And then we figured out how to do cold email at scale and to automate it through Daniel's course, Cold Email Mastery. Started our agency, grew that. It went extremely well. Daniel reached out to us essentially for a case study, because our cold email agency was like a success story from his course. And then we kind of connected and partnered on a course together called The Vault, which was like a follow-up to Cold Email Mastery. It was essentially like successful cold email conversations as a swipe file that you could use to train people on inbox management. And that course did extremely well. It was his best-selling course after Cold Email Mastery. And so that led us to then exploring partnerships even more and getting into doing Client Ascension, which was exactly what you're saying, is a course to teach people how we were able to scale Knowledge X, our cold email lead gen agency at the time, from 0 to 100K a month in less than 12 months. And then we got into Client Ascension, and all while that was happening, ListKit was also an idea. ListKit actually started at or around the same time as Client Ascension started back in 2021, but as a productized service, until a couple of years later is when we started to turn that into an actual SaaS.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's just incredible, like the layers of how far one skill set can really go. And I think that really applies to any industry, no matter what. And one of the core things that I'm seeing, relate with your whole journey is that a lot of that stemmed with originally growing your business from the first couple of days, or from the very beginning. Like cold email was the mechanism that really helped you get traction to grow those businesses from there. And it didn't matter what the business model was, it's the same mechanism of acquiring customers, which stemmed from cold email. And then I guess like that moving over to, today, what's it like, building, what's that experience been like, building out like a software? Like I know you guys decided to go bootstrapped instead of seeking like outside funding. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that like decision and how things have been behind the scenes and what that process was like building a multi-million-dollar, software SaaS?
Yeah, for sure, man. So the bootstrap decision is really just how we know to build businesses. Like the agency is bootstrapped, the coaching program is bootstrapped. SaaS is a lot harder to bootstrap because you have really expensive costs up front. Like we had spent close to $300,000 developing the SaaS over the course of the first 2 years without seeing any revenues from those efforts. And most people up front cannot take on those costs, but because we had cash flow from the agency and the coaching program coming in, we're able to fund it that way. So that was primarily what got us off the ground. Was we pretty much raised capital through our other ventures, which is pretty cool. And I think we took a very like methodical approach to it, of like not rushing through the process and doing it the right way and spending money as it comes in, not money we don't have. And so again, it was a long journey. And the other thing we did really smartly with ListKit is we started as a productized service. So before we spent a penny building a software, I wanted to prove that the software was actually something people wanted. And so we created a productized service as closely similar to the software we were planning to build, which was simply, hey, we'll get you leads that are verified, because Apollo and other competitors, they give you leads that aren't verified. And we wanted to see, would people be willing to pay a premium for verified leads as opposed to Apollo leads that they then have to verify on their own. Back in 2021, when we first launched it, we were selling verified emails that were manually built by our leads list team from the agency for $1 an email. $1. Imagine today paying $1 for a verified email credit. And people were paying it. We had hundreds of customers paying ListKit for verified emails for $1. So we're thinking in our head, like, man, if we can cut down costs of email credits to a couple of cents and automate it and make it self-serve so they don't have to wait for us to fulfill it and build their leads list, people are definitely going to sign up for this. And so that's what gave us the confidence to actually build out the software and the cash flow to build it out, because that productized service was bringing in real nice revenue.
Wow. I mean, dude, that is incredible. And I thank you for sharing, some of that background. I think a lot of people would be really excited to kind of hear that. And it's definitely inspiring. And I can imagine like part of the confidence that you had in deciding to be bootstrapped, aside from having like the leverage with capital that you had from your previous businesses, you guys originally in the first 90 days had scaled to a 7-figure run rate, primarily with cold email. So I'm assuming because you already knew that the cold email concept and mechanism worked, that gave you faith in being able to like scale and become very profitable at the very beginning without having outside funding or running things like ads. Is that a fair assumption?
100%. 100%. That was it. And it's like, it did two things really. The productized service allowed us to prove out like what our market actually wanted to pay for, because we got so much feedback in that process as well. Like, what did they care about versus what did they not care about? Like, they cared a lot about price. They cared a lot about delivery time. So we did, when we first launched ListKit, it was like 24-hour leads list, because the process to build a leads list back then was days, because we were also doing the personalization, like the personalized first lines way back then. So ListKit leads would come with verified emails and personalized first lines, which was obviously different than Apollo, because you get not verified emails and no personalized first line. So you then have to go and manually add those and use different software tools to help you add those. So ListKit was different in the sense that it just came with everything right away, and you can just plug them into campaigns and go. And so we started to see what people actually cared about. People really didn't care about the personalized lines, and so that's why you don't see that in the software product today. people cared about verification, people cared about pricing, people cared about how fast they could get their leads and plug them into the campaigns. So all that sort of stuff was great insights to tell us how to actually build the product in the first place. And then the other part of it, again, like I said, was the fact that we're raising capital through selling that service as well to invest in the product.
Yeah. Wow. And how long did that timeline go from switching from a productized service to a full-on SaaS that people could, go in and self-manage or self-serve themselves?
That was, like I said, I mean, the company started in 2021. We're now in 2024. We launched the software product officially in July last year, 2023. So, and we started the company in July 2021. So it was a full 2 years. And during those 2 years, we weren't sitting doing nothing. We were running a productized service company, and we were also figuring out how the hell did we turn this into a SaaS. For the first couple of months, we worked with a firm that it just didn't work out. We hired developers, designers, all that sort of stuff, and we just couldn't get a product launched because they couldn't build what we wanted and what we had in mind. And then later on, we were able to partner with Oliver, as you know, who was actually a student in client attention. And a couple months after partnering with Oliver is when we were actually able to launch. I think like 6 to 7 months after that partnership was established. And so it took us a few tries. There was a lot of trial and error. There were a lot of failures, but it was from July 2021 to July 2023 before ListKit had a SaaS at all.
Wow. I mean, that's something that a lot of people just don't think about. They see something pop up and they're like, oh, I could do the same thing in a couple of months, but it really is. You really do have to understand what your customers want and understand the pain points of what they're currently doing, because that's how you really kind of tailor the solution. I think that's what you guys did incredibly well with ListKit. And then from that point on, when you launched the SaaS, I mean, it was just over a year ago. I mean, you guys are absolutely crushing it, but the path to that 7 figures, like really quick in the 90 days, was all stemmed through cold email being the primary outreach mechanism. What was the lead magnet? Because people didn't know you. How did you get them to actually, want to trust you? Did you guys offer up any sort of free trial, or what was the
on the ListKit side? There was kind of like a mix of it wasn't a free trial, it was more of a free sample. So like we knew we were selling leads, and so how can we get them hooked on ListKit leads? Let's just give them a sample so they can see what the quality is like. And our selling point for ListKit, there's verified leads. We might have better data coverage. We might have a nicer UI UX, but our biggest selling point is always take leads from ListKit and then take the same search filters and bring them over to Apollo or ZoomInfo or Uplead or whoever else and get leads there, verify them if you need to, and put them up against each other. Run an A/B test campaign with the same scripts, the same strategy, the same everything. The only variable that changes is where you get the leads from. And every single time anyone's ever done that, they've seen better results with ListKit leads. So that's always been our selling point, is results over anything else. We believe, and we've seen it enough to have confidence in this statement, that ListKit leads get better results than leads from any other leads platform, especially if you are only limited to just using that one tool.
Sure. And I could attest to that too, Andre. The first time I ever used ListKit, I remember it was for one of our SEO clients. And we were running 2 campaigns for them, one just pitching their main service and another one going after like partnerships, like white labeling their solution. The first meeting that I booked them with a ListKit lead turned into a $220,000 annual contract for our SEO client. And that was literally the first list I'd ever pulled from ListKit. And the process of not having to go and verify these leads manually and then clean and format and do all this stuff, like it really is a game changer, especially if you're trying to send emails at scale. And so that's all amazing. And thank you for sharing all that background. And I'm assuming with like Client Ascension, was it a relatively, similar approach with when you guys first got started?
It was
a lot of trial and
error. With Client Ascension, it was, hey, let's put out this coaching program, but let's limit it to 10 people. And then once 10 people are in, we're going to shut it off for 6 months and just work directly with these guys and see like, what is this process supposed to look like? So the original idea, or the original cohort for Client Ascension, was me, Dan, Daniel, and Christian doing weekly coaching calls, group calls with the 10 students, which actually turned out to be 14 students because enough people wanted it. We had to let in a few other guys before we closed it off. So we let in 14 students, one of them being David and Shenny, who are still coaches in the program today. One of them being Oliver, who's now a co-founder at ListKit, and a couple of other guys in there that went on to do really great things. But anyways, we worked with that cohort for a little while, and it basically came out to be like this was a miserable experience because these guys had to wait an entire week to get on a call with us, and then we'd get on a call and be too many people because it was not just individual calls with me, Daniel, Dan, and Christian. It was all of us on a call with all of the students once a week. It ended up being like a 3-hour call, and it was just a pain. And so we were like ready to just dump client attention and be like, this is not fun. We don't want to do this forever. And then we basically sat down and came up with this idea of like, hey, let's bring in a coach for each of the things people actually need help with to scale their business. Coaches that we know and learn from and respect, like Nick Abraham was one of the first guys we brought in on the lead gen side because we did some work with him before, like on the cold email stuff with Daniel. Him and Daniel had some partnerships, like they had a first line software beforehand. And then we brought in Steven Trister back then, who was the VSL's coach. And then we brought in David Jacob to help with sales. We brought in Connor Sunderland to help with sales. So we brought in all these guys from Twitter that we learned from ourselves and applied some of their teachings to different parts of running a business. And then myself, Daniel, Christian, we all did our own coaching calls separate. So now instead of one weekly group call with everyone on it, it's like there's 10 calls, but each call is a specific topic.
Yeah.
And so not everyone goes every call. And also we're not stuck doing a 3-hour call every single week, hating our lives and also not seeing great results for our students. And so that took a huge turn. And then client ascension eventually developed. And that offer's changed a bunch over time and will continue to change. But yeah, what you see today is not at all what it was in the beginning. For anything we do and probably any other business that's, further down the line doing well.
Yeah, and that's just how it goes. I mean, your offer always kind of changes and just the fulfillment side of things and the operations in general. But, Client Ascension is an incredible program. I've been in it for it'll be 2 years in December. So I can highly attest to just like the effectiveness of it, especially if you just really want to figure out how to like launch your own business, how to scale it. When we first joined Client Ascension, I think my agency was doing like $3,000 a month in revenue. I was brand spanking new. And we're going to probably hit our first 50K month here in the next either month or before the end of the year. And all of that to like really with this whole conversation, a lot of the similarities that I see is like with my business, the foundation was cold email. That's how we acquired all of our original customers. And that's how we, started getting funds and capital to start spending money on different advertising mechanisms, or whether it be ads, SEO, and the same situation applies to, Andre with his multiple businesses and all of his students that have multiple different offers. Like cold email is ultimately just like an incredibly powerful way to scale predictably. And it's really, once you figure out the winning script and you figure out an offer that people want, there's demand for it. It's really just an inputs outputs thing. You know how many people you need to reach out to in order to get this many meetings or this many customers. And it's like an arithmetic, which is why what I love so much about it. And I guess to kind of like start wrapping things up here, like, Andre, is there any, you've been very successful with multiple businesses. Any tips that you have for, I guess businesses maybe that are a little bit younger that are still under that $50,000 a month mark? Like any tips to help them scale, past 50,000, tips with cold email or just tips in general to kind of like break through that to that next level?
Yeah, if there's anything you can learn or extract from my story, it's to be patient. What your business looks like today is not what it'll look like a year from now or even a month from now, and to embrace that change and also to create that change and innovation. I think that's like one of the top qualities you got to look for people in business is they have to be always looking to improve and level up what they're doing, even when it's already working. That's something that we've done at Client Ascension. Where like it's a great program already, it's helped a lot of people already, but we're constantly every single day finding ways to improve it and make it better. Same with that ListKit. It's a good product, people love it, it gets great results, but where else can we continue to improve and build upon what's already there? So yeah, constant improvement, Showing up every single day consistently, as simple as that sounds, that is like the absolute key to success. The only way your business grows and you get past the 50K mark is if you show up every single day for it and you put in the work. And then just, you have to be, I really do believe to scale a business and to get past 50K and to continue growing from there, you have to be a grinder. Like you have to show up every day and do the work. You have to compete. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to find new ways to do things, right? Especially, like, look at the landscape of cold email in the past couple of months. How many people dropped off of cold email because it got a little bit more difficult than before? So many people. So many people. And those are not people that I consider grinders and like ruthless businessmen that are going to stick it out and figure it out no matter what. As soon as things get tough, if you just dip out and go do something else, that's a pattern that's going to haunt you the rest of your life, or business career, that is. And so the quality traits I look for is like just sticking it out longer than anyone else. My best business strategy ever is I outlast the competition. We've done that with ListKit. Our competitors for ListKit 2 years ago are not the same competitors today. Most of them don't even exist anymore. Our competitors for Client Ascension just 6 months ago, or even a year ago or 2 years ago, are not the same competitors we have today. They don't even exist anymore. And so when you look at my businesses, they might not be the fastest growing. We might not have the best growth rate. We might not be the most exciting today based on the past 3 months or 6 months. But let's go back 3 years and look at what we've been able to accomplish and how far we've come and how stable and consistent that's been. That's what I'm most proud of, without ruining reputation, without taking shortcuts, without doing anything, out of character. And I think that's what people have to really take away from this is can you commit to the next 5 to 10 years of doing what you're doing now? And if you can't, zoom out and take a longer term horizon perspective on things, you're just going to consistently find yourself in a situation where you're forcing things and you're getting impatient, and you just then from there jump to the next thing.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, you're a trooper, and those are some wise words, because like a lot of people just look at it as a get rich quick scheme, and it's absolutely not that. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And a lot of people find that out the hard way, give up, and then they don't realize that they're literally right at the point of the diamonds when they give up. You got to stick through it. But it's been, just fun watching your career, watching your journey, and just closing thoughts here. Like, I know you're not really doing the fulfillment, I don't think, too much anymore with like physically sending the emails. Obviously, a lot of people doing cold email out there. For anybody that is looking to scale their business with cold email, would you recommend working with BuzzLead, myself and Troy?
Yeah, you guys are great. I mean, we've known each other for a couple of months now at this point, and one of the cool things about Client Ascension, because you guys came through the Client Ascension program, is like it creates just like this network of service providers that we can sit here and confidently recommend. And so even for us in our businesses with ListKit and Client Ascension, when we go to hire an agency, the first place we look is Client Ascension to see, like, is there a student that does cold email, or is there a student that does SEO, or is there a student that does new website design? And we typically work with Client Ascension students before anyone else, and we've had nothing but good experiences. And it's kind of a testament to like, all right, let's see if we truly believe in what we're doing and what we're selling, because if we do, then these guys will provide a great service. And so far it's worked out pretty much every time. So absolutely, if you guys are looking to do cold email, I personally trust Nick and Troy to do an awesome job with it, and I think you guys should too. And just understand too, when you're going into cold email, I think this is important for anyone. And this is important for all cold email agencies to really start communicating, is what is the reality of cold email? The more people start to push cold email as like a magic solution or like a quick hitter win for your business, the more you're just going to find yourself in a tougher situation with clients and relationships and with scaling, because you're just going to constantly play this game of you get quick revenue and then it retracts. You get quick revenue and it retracts because you're not being upfront about the reality of cold email, which is similar to the reality of something like SEO. It takes 3 to 6 months for you to really start seeing results. One, with just testing strategies, but more than anything else, with ramp up in volume and consistency, like we talked about earlier. So there's a lot of cold email agencies out there that'll promise you results that seem amazing and too good to be true, because they are. And so I would always stick with agencies that are being, upfront and transparent about here's what you can expect, and agencies that have a forecast on what does this look like long term. If an agency is just trying to get you into a 1 month retainer and that's it, it's a red flag. If they want to work with you for 6 months or 12 months, everyone wins. And I think that's what you're seeing. The guys that will stick around in this space are the guys that can keep clients for that much longer, because if you do keep clients for that much longer, they eventually start to see really impactful results for their business, and that just turns into case studies, and you can't refute a case study once you have it. So
Heck yeah. Well, very well said, my man. And for anybody out there that is considering doing cold email themselves, I highly recommend checking out ListKit.io. It'll just save you an incredible amount of time with like actually building out your lead list, and your leads aren't going to bounce. Like the emails that you send aren't going to bounce because they are triple verified. So definitely check that out. Andre, thank you so much, man. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for filling everybody in on your journey up until this point. It's absolutely inspiring, and I'm trying to do something similar. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, man. And
path, bro. You're an inspiration to me as well. So
thank you, brother.